Hey guys, it's Dennis here with the Revog Games Podcast. I'm joined by
Joshua Weyers, all the way in South Africa.
and at first we were going to shoot this one episode yesterday, but our schedules didn't line up. But actually, it's a good thing we waited because there was like a bunch of news that came out afterwards. Specifically, this Horizon Forbidden West gameplay reveal footage that we got to see 14 minutes of, but a lot of other things going on as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing all right. I'm this weekend. I'm gonna go drive out and see my folks in the Bay Area. So
Nice.
I'm
I'm also seeing my folks this weekend.
yeah, but I haven't seen my folks in like 2 years, over 2 years, I think now.
Oh man, that's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it's just I was gonna see them right before the pandemic last year, and then that happened, and then wait till I get
Travel
vaccinated.
became real tricky.
Yeah, now I got vaccinated and they're vaccinated, so it's all good now. All right, so yeah, let's talk about all the cool stuff that's happening. So at the State of Play live stream for Sony, they revealed 14 minutes of Horizon Forbidden West. I haven't played the game, the original yet. I do have it on the PS4. I got it, on sale for $10. I hear a lot of good things. I'll be honest with you. When I first saw the game name and the artwork or whatever, I didn't really think anything of the game. But then I started hearing all this like praise about how cool the game is and how the story's great and gameplay is great and all that stuff. And that's what got me interested. But just like the Horizon, first of all, when I heard Horizon Zero Dawn, I thought it was a first-person shooter. It just lent itself to being like a first-person shooter.
Does give that feeling, yeah.
And then even the aesthetic of it, the style, like, not that I thought it was bad, I just didn't see, like, it didn't really catch my eye, but now you have, this sequel coming out, and they showed stuff running on PlayStation 5. It looks great. It looks like it's taking advantage of that next-gen hardware. What do you think of this?
I'm honestly look. I had high hopes from the announcement trailer about a year ago. I loved the first game. It was one of those games where it was like, look, everybody I know that played it loved the game, but when it came out, I don't know if it was like, I wouldn't say, actually the marketing, there was good marketing for the game, but I don't know anybody that bought the game. I literally walked into a GameStop. I returned like a game that I had finished within a week. It was secondhand, so they had, I think there was the return policy. I was like, well, I finished the game, may as well get my money back. And then I asked for a recommendation, and the guy working there, he was the one who said, hey, try this out. And I was like, just by looking at it, I was like, I don't know if this is my cup of tea. And he's like, trust me, play it. He didn't even like tell me anything else. He's like, honestly, just play it. The mechanics are good. It's a fun game. And it is. It's one of those games where, look, it has a lot of character to it. The story is good, and the gameplay mechanics are good. So it has that, like, it has the nice blend of both of those. Whereas usually in games you kind of sacrifice one for the other. You know what I mean? Unless it's like a really big AAA title that we expect a lot from, like God of War or something. So I've been waiting. I've been really excited for a sequel, and I'm so glad that it's happening, because for a while I also thought maybe, just maybe, there won't actually be a sequel for. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, it's everything looks fantastic. The thing I'm happiest about is the addition of new tools and new weapons, because I think I said this a while ago, which is like, they could have literally released the exact same game again in terms of gameplay mechanics and RPG mechanics, and just given me a new story, and I would have paid $60 for that happily. Which is funny because I'm going to talk about Biomutant later, and that's going to have a different opinion. But yeah. So there's a bunch of new stuff in it, which obviously, like, yeah, new game, which makes sense. They're going to add a bunch of new things, but that was the thing that stood out for me the most, or made the game the most fun and most engaging. The original game, the first one, was the tools you could use, the weapons you could use, and how they all work together, and how they all work differently as compared to what you're hunting. You know what I mean? And it seems that they've just like added onto that, and added new things. So I'm looking forward to that. The story looks good. The game looks good. I just want it. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that I'm not going to be able to play. It'll come to PC eventually because we know that
Yeah.
the original went on PC and it did well as well. This will also lead into something else we'll talk about later. But Days Gone also recently did very well on PC,
Hmm.
which means that Sony has seen success in bringing their games
Exclusive
to
title.
PC.
Yeah.
They've seen success, which means I believe I don't think this was listed for it, but it seems the next uh, exclusive coming to PC will be Uncharted 4,
Hmm.
most likely. And it makes sense because, like I said, we've seen the success. They made that exclusive deal with well, they had some big multi-million-dollar deal with Epic, so maybe that's for exclusive rights for some of their IP. I'm not too sure. Um, Either way, man, I'm just stoked for this. We don't really have I believe there's no release date, even though they like showed us a bunch of stuff. I don't think that there's
No, I
a
think
release
it's just
date.
supposed to be end of the year. That's, I think, the target date
Yeah,
or
it also takes place
target
pretty
area.
much. It's 6 months right after the first game.
Hmm.
It follows pretty much cleanly like right through. Obviously 6 months because you're on like a whole different side of America. I would assume it probably took 6 months just to freaking walk there or ride there on your
Yeah.
freaking robot dinosaur thing. um, Man, I'm stoked. I'm stoked. That's all I have to say for this. It's gonna be well received. I see this game doing really well. Like I don't
Hmm.
see it doing getting bad reviews. Um, I just don't see this game flopping, that considering it's a sequel. I don't know a lot of sequels. There have been a lot of sequels that have like I don't know. Actually, I don't know any like real sequels that have flopped completely. Like they've been maybe some sequels have not been as well received as others,
Hmm.
but like usually sequels do well because if you're doing a sequel, you know you have something good. You have a good IP. You have a good game. You have a good idea for a game. So I think it's going to do well. I don't see them dropping the ball here. I don't see anybody being upset about this. It's gonna be good. Is it gonna be a console seller? Not so much. I don't think so because people know that they will be on PC eventually. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for it. I guess that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, the
Um,
graphics look great, especially the underwater sequences and the way that
yeah,
her hair looks underwater.
that's like a whole new thing that they've added as well as far as I didn't play the DLC for the first game, but as far as I know, as far as I remember, there was no underwater activity in that game. So that's like a whole extra element that they've added there of like um just opens up a whole new angle to the game, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks great. Speaking of, you mentioned like, oh, your $60 or whatever. Remember, PS5 games are $70
It's going to be $70,
a
yeah.
pop. The whole thing about Sony having their exclusive now on PCs years later. Well, I guess like PC, you get the best of both worlds from both Microsoft and Sony, but you have to be a patient person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think, yeah, it's one of those things where I don't see it not doing well. It's not the big name title like Uncharted, God of War, whatever. Even Ghosts, I think, had a bigger
Yeah.
name, but it has like a pretty
It's
good following.
it's getting bigger. The
Yeah,
name's getting bigger, if you will. You
and
know, by the
the
time Horizon the
PC
third game
helps.
comes out, it'll be huge.
And the PC
Yeah.
stuff helps because, okay, let's say you are a PC gamer and you don't own any consoles and you don't have PS4, PS5, and you heard a lot of good things about it, and you're like, cool, I'm gonna play the PC version, and you really like it. And if you become a diehard fan, you may buy a PS5 just so you could play the sequel, Forbidden West, because you can't wait X amount of years, right?
Yeah.
Like for
Well,
example,
here's something worth talking about as well. You finish what you're
no,
saying,
no, no. I
because
was just gonna say, for example, if the next God of War comes out, it's we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but like it comes out, am I gonna wait several years to play the next one? Probably not. I'll probably try and get a PS5. I mean, even though PS5s are in limited supply right now, but I would try and get one
yeah.
just to play that game.
Well, it's yeah. We may as well talk about that right now as well because it's kind of ties into this which is that this game is coming out on PS4 and PS5, the next Horizon game. So that is also why I know for a fact the game will do well, because there's still a lot of people who have PS4s. I mean,
Yeah.
PS4 won the console wars. For that generation. Arguably, some people are saying the PS5 is winning the console war, but at the end of the day,
It is
we
for
won't
now.
really know until
It is for now,
yeah, for
but
now.
I mean, it's too early to tell.
Game Pass is insane, yeah. But it's one of those things where I think at least there's a possibility of us getting the game sooner on PC. Like you said, a God of War, that's going to be the fact that they've decided that God of War 5 is going to God of War 5. The next God of War. Actually, I guess I'm not wrong. It technically is God of War 5,
Is
actually.
it? Yeah.
Because God of War 1, 2, and 3, then they rebooted it with God of War, which was God of War 4 technically. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's a happy fluke. I'll take it. Like that is going to be a system seller. The fact that you can only play it on PS5, it's not going to be on PS4. Because at least with Horizon, the next Horizon game, if it can be on PS4, most likely they will add it to their PS Now streaming service, which means you'll probably be able to stream the game on PC. It's not gonna be amazing because you're streaming it. You know what I mean? But I think like that it's gonna sell well, and we're gonna get it on PC sooner than we're gonna get God of War. Considering there's not even the previous God of War.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we might get soon. There are rumors about that, but now I think those rumors may have been cleared up to be Uncharted 4 instead. But yeah, it's gonna do well. Like this is the thing. Like the stories. If you've played the first one, you're like, yeah, okay. I guess you could go on YouTube and watch like some YouTuber or streamer play the thing and watch the movie. But you're gonna want to experience that. Like I know, like this. I want to get a PS5 for this. I mean, look, I want to get a PS5 because I know the next God of War is gonna be an exclusive. But I want to get a PS5 for this as well. And I think they're doing a good job of getting people's attention back on the PS5. There's still a lot of people who have attention on the PS5, but they don't really realize that there's nothing to play. Like everybody I know who's hyped on the PS5 doesn't really realize that there's no games on it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you've played Miles and you played Returnal, then I guess if you're like a Ratchet and Clank fan or like Sackboy or something like that, then you've got some stuff. But
not much.
Yeah, there's not a lot. But to be fair, there's not a lot on the Xbox Series X. Actually, even less on the Xbox Series X as well, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, let's talk about
getting people's attention.
Yeah,
people are going to want to get the PS5 for sure. I'm more willing to get it now, than before. Literally before this news.
I mean, okay, so let's talk about that. I don't think it's confirmed. It's just a rumor about God of War 5 being on the PS5 exclusively, which is, it's interesting because, in essence, Sony is willing to lose money. Not lose money overall. They'll still make money, but lose potential profits to basically make it a system seller for the PS5. It's a gamble, right? Because if you release it for PS4 and PS5, you're definitely going to sell way more copies because there's lots of people who don't have a PS5. Either one, they can't afford it. Two, they're unable to get it. Or three, they're waiting like me, like, okay, let me wait until I feel like it's really worth my time, which, who knows, maybe the fall or winter, maybe that will be it or whatever. But anyways.
It's also going to be $70.
Yeah, I mean, all the PS5 games, $70. So, what do you think about that? If that rumor is true, that God of War 5 Ragnarok, which I think they officially announced that was the title, even though everyone knew it was going to be anyways, being exclusive to PS5, like, what do you think about Sony's decision on doing that?
There's two reasons why they could have done this, right? One is the immediate what's the word I'm looking for? Assumption. The immediate assumption is that they're doing this to, in fact, boost PS5 sales, right?
Yeah.
But do they need to do that? Isn't there a shortage of PS5 sales? Haven't they technically already outsold the Xbox? Like, it's not like they're losing, you know what I mean? In terms of like people buying their consoles, it's a highly in-demand console. Everybody's trying to get it. It's sold out everywhere, you know what I mean? So, which leads me to believe that there's also the other option as to why they did this is because the next God of War game is just that resource heavy. You know what I mean? That it simply will not run on PS4, which I uh, that would be the second assumption to make. I don't know which case it is. Maybe the game could run on PS4 because look, the PS4 game looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
I don't think my eyes could really tell a difference. You know what I mean? If you had to do it on PS5, well, I suppose look, your load times will be different. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean you're not going to put it on PS4. So I don't know. Like I said, either the game's way more resource heavy and they therefore need to only make it on PS5. It cannot be played on the PS4, or they're trying to boost their console sales, which I don't really see them needing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then the problem is okay, if you're saying it's too resource intensive for PS4, which may be, um, they know that going in. You know what I mean? Like they know that when they start off the, and also you can always downscale stuff for other versions, right? You let's say you develop for PS5 and then
Hold
you
on.
you make a PS4 port. You know,
If they want to release the game this year,
they're not
surely
really
that means
they're not releasing it this year.
like yeah, if they, like I know that's what if their plan is still to release the game this year, then that definitely means that they were working on this game before they had schematics to the PS5, even if they are Sony, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So most likely it probably could be on PS. Keep in mind that this is still a somewhat a rumor,
Yes.
but it's a rumor that does make sense financially, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's to
Um,
to get people to buy more PS5. Even if they have a shortage, they just want people. First of all, I don't think it's coming out this year.
yeah.
And also, why come out the end of this year when you have Horizon Forbidden West is kind of your big flagship title coming out
Yeah,
this for
most likely be
PS5.
coming out. Yeah.
Uh,
It'll most likely be coming out around summer. I mean, or
Christmas.
sorry, well, summer for me.
Okay, summer
yeah.
for you, Christmas
Summer
for
for me.
us. So yeah, I just feel like they're just trying to get even people to buy more in demand, and then for
Maybe
the
they're
PS5.
expecting like a drop in sales next year when they're expecting to drop the next God of War game. You know, it could just be them preparing,
Yeah.
ahead of the time because they know how great that Xbox deal is. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
possibly. All right, let's
yeah.
move on to the next topic. We've got Far Cry 6. The release date was officially announced for October 7th. And like I said, this is kind of going back to the Sony thing. Like, so a new Assassin's Creed probably isn't going to come out until 2021, which I like this whole new every other year model versus every year model. And so Far Cry 6 will kind of be Ubisoft's flagship title or tentpole release for this ending this year. That's kind of why I'm pretty sure we're not seeing God of War at the end of this year, because Horizon Forbidden West is that tentpole release. You know, you don't want to draw too much attention and sales away from your. There's no use in, let's say, if you have like 2 to 3 AAA titles coming out, why would you want to release them near each other and suck up the
Yeah.
sales when you can just release it later on, you know? Especially if you're from the same company.
Makes no sense.
So,
You know what I think? I think that like the God of War release date is just gonna like we're just gonna roll past it, and they're just gonna pretend that we're just gonna pretend it never happened. You know, they're not gonna say, "Hey, there's a delay." They're just gonna shut their mouths. They're not gonna say a word. They're like, "Hopefully, nobody notices that we said God of War was gonna come out in 2021." And by the time it's 2022, people are gonna go, "Hold on." Um, that's my speculation at this point.
yeah. So I don't know. They released some details about Far Cry 6. I'm not, too familiar. I mean, I know the franchise, but I never really got deep into it. What did you think about kind of the news of the release date plus like some new details that they released?
Um, it just doesn't look like it's for me, you know?
Okay.
Like the Far Cry games are sick. I loved Far Cry. Far Cry 2 was one of my favorite games of all time because they had South Africans in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like really just horrible, rude, disgusting South Africans speaking our native language, and I was like, "Ah, how apt. We are a racist country." So that's what literally what we were in there for, like the Boer farmers, like these drug lord farmers. It was quite funny. Far Cry 3, loved it because of Vas, if I'm saying his name correctly. That was an iconic character people loved. People wanted a spin-off show, spin-off movie.
Mm-hmm.
Far Cry 4 and 5 is kind of when they started losing me. Like they all just kind of started like after like four and five, like four specifically just seemed like a rehash of three with a couple different things, and then five was cool because it was the first game that they've ever set in America, and
Hmm.
it was apparently really tricky to be able to do that, setting a game based in America, you know, killing Americans technically. It was a tricky thing to pull off. The game looked good. It was well received, but it's like I don't know if it like I don't remember a lot of people playing it. And then this game, though it looks great,
Hmm.
it just it's just another Far Cry game. I don't know.
Hmm.
Like I'm that's exactly what I was expecting. It's like if you've played one like if you played FIFA 2020, you're gonna have played. It's the same as FIFA 2021. You know, sure
Hmm.
it's gonna look new and you're gonna have new people, but it's the same thing. You know what I mean? And I think that that's what we're looking at here. People are gonna like if people who are fans of the series are gonna play it and buy it. You know, it's like Gears of War. I enjoy Gears of War. It's
Hmm.
not my go-to, but whenever a new Gears of War comes out, people will buy it and people will play it because it has a fairly good fan base. And that's the same case with Far Cry. It has a good fan base. People will buy the game. It's not gonna be me, even if the game's amazing. It just doesn't. It's not the kind of game that I enjoy. I will say a little bit of news we got out of it has been fun. Like there's always been like a little silly side to Far Cry, and apparently there's a gun that can shoot CDs, and it can play the Macarena,
Nice.
which is fantastic. So you can go on a little killing rampage while playing the Macarena, and it's like literally like one of those old school CD, like this the CD Walkmans. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, yeah, it's like strapped to a gun. You're shooting discs. That looks quite cool. It's probably going to be fun. Look, the game looks beautiful. As like I said, it doesn't look like my cup of tea. Not going to be for me. I'm excited to see what kind of silly things or hijinks people get up to in the game, if that makes sense.
Hmm. All right. Moving on. Last week's big release was Biomutant, and
Yeah.
the reviews came out. People were talking about it. You played it, right?
Yes, sir. I managed to play a couple hours of it.
All right. Why don't you give us? Well, actually, I'll just kind of the gist that I got from reviews were that it had a cool, interesting concept and some unique kind of artwork style. They said it was fun but repetitive, and there was like a lot of stuff that like was kind of samey, like the
Yeah.
quests and the puzzles and objectives and whatnot. But it did have some fun game mechanics. What was your take on it so far?
Here's my take, straight up. Honestly, if this game was $40, it would be critically acclaimed. But it's not. It's a $60 game. It's a full price game. It was advertised as a AAA game, even though I believe the team working on this was a small team, I believe. But even then, it was marketed like there's no tomorrow. You know what I mean? This game was like when I think of marketing, look, it didn't reach cyberpunk levels of marketing. You know what I mean? But like there was a lot of marketing for this. I think you sent me a link to Conan playing it on
Yeah.
his I forget what the
Unders-
name of that series is.
Clueless
It's the something
Gamer.
game.
Clueless
Clueless
Game.
Gamer, yeah. They're always quite fun. I like doing those, but it's they spend a lot of money on marketing. Um I will like I said, if the game was like 30, $40, it would be critically acclaimed. If they didn't market this game and they just spoke about it recently and they were a bit more upfront about it, people would because here's the thing, it is a fun game. It is a good game. Does it
Hmm.
need some polishing? Yes. Most likely there will be some patches. I think like it doesn't need polishing the way that Cyberpunk needed polishing on the PS4.
Hmm.
This game just needs some gameplay wise. I think it just needs some loose polishing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, Here's the thing. I think people were expecting a much more serious game,
Hmm.
and this game's not. This game's like whimsical and childlike
Hmm.
almost. I could only relate it to like the original Fable. That's the only thing I can relate it to in terms of like the feeling you get from it, where it's like all these trailers we saw about Biomutant, everybody was expecting like a more gritty, edgy kind of game, and then you get there, and there's literally the entire game has a narrator that narrates the story as if it's a fairy tale.
Hmm.
Um, like you'll be talking to people, and everyone's got weird names like this is the Oob Gloob. Go talk to the Oob Gloob. See what the Oob Gloob says. He says, and then it's just they all speak gibberish. They all just like mumble their words, which some of them are funny. Like it's not like it is gibberish, but it's like people still give it character. Like I give the voice actors props to that. Um, brain backtrack. Point is, anyway, so it'll like the narrator will they'll mumble something like blah 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 blah, and the narrator will say, "Ah, this person remembers you from when you were a child," and they're saying this and that, and that's the thing that gets really repetitive, is that the dialogue there's no dialogue changes much besides the main story game. Like a lot of the dialogue is reused. Um,
Uh,
the narrator gets very annoying very quickly because he's narrating all the time. I believe there is a function to turn him off in the settings. That's how you know it's bad, you know?
if you want to turn off the narrator, who's like the
If
main
they
guy
give you the
leading the
option
story.
to turn off the narrator, yeah.
Hmm.
It's just it gets too much at a certain point in time. Look, like I said, the game's fun. The game lacks things to do. There's a lot like the open world is nice and big, but there's
Hmm.
like a lot of just big empty fields. The villages are quite small and generic. Everything about this game would have been great if there was no hype about it, but because it didn't live up to its hype by far. And I've been talking to people about this, so they're like, "Oh, should I give the game a skip?" I'm like, "No, look, honestly, if you have the money for the game, get it. If you don't mind, like I would regret spending $60 on it, but I would
Hmm.
not regret spending $40 on it. Because here's the
Hmm.
thing: you could technically finish this game in a day. Nah, and it's
Really?
one of the games like if you wanted to.
Hmm.
I know some people that have played through the main story in like 7 or 8 hours.
Hmm.
Um, like no side quests or anything like that. You could theoretically play through it in like a day or 2 days. And there's not a lot of replayability, you know, unless you want to try different classes, which I'll get into in a second as well. So it's one of those things where are you willing to pay $60 for a game that's only going to entertain you maybe 1 or 2 days? And
No.
the answer is most people aren't
No.
prepared for that. Like that's why I think that's like they wouldn't be able to sell the game for 30 or $35, but that would have been like the perfect price point.
Hmm.
Or like $40 would be fair considering how much marketing they did. But if they just saved some of the money on marketing, I think that well, who knows? Who knows? Because I don't know what the sales numbers are. Maybe the marketing was worth it. Like the game's not getting trashed. It's getting mixed reviews, but it's not getting trashed. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I've seen a few reviewers trash it, but it's like I think we've put such a huge expectation on games being good nowadays that it's like it's gonna fail to meet everybody's
Yeah, I
expectations, you
mean,
know?
people are expecting God of War, Red Dead
Yeah.
Redemption 2 quality for every game. That's just not possible.
But like I said, they did. I wouldn't say they falsely advertised this game. They just misled people as to what the mood of the game was going to be. Because
Mm-hmm.
literally, not until you sent me the clip of Conan O'Brien playing it, up until that point, like I'd seen a lot of footage,
Mm-hmm.
and not and in none of that footage was there a narrator. And then I saw it in the Conan O'Brien clip, and I was like, oh God. That changes the entire setting of this game. It's like no longer is it like dark and edgy. It's like, oh, you're walking through the forest and you
Uh-huh.
stumble upon a Goopa Gloop. You
Yeah.
must go and fight the Goopa Gloop to go and get to the Oobloop village, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, what the heck? It's fun. Gameplay mechanics, it's fun. If anybody who's listening or watching this does want to get the game, if you guys ever see it on sale, definitely pick it up. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? If this game ends up becoming like free on PS, like as a PS Plus or an Xbox exclusive, or if you guys ever see it for free anywhere, definitely play it. It is fun. That's the
Mm-hmm.
the biggest takeaway from it, is I can say it's fun. Story very average, very pretty damn boring in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. But the game itself is fun. You know what I mean? I like the crafting mechanics. Um, you're pretty much locked in the beginning. Your character creation plays a big role. What breed you choose and what class you choose, they have to like coincide. Make sure that your breed and your class coincide so your stats line up quite well. And then once you've chosen your class, that dictates your playing for the entire game. Like
Mm-hmm.
yes, there are like a lot of perks that are shared, and anybody can dual wield weapons technically, but like um, if you want to be a mage, for instance, you gotta be the mage class. You know what I mean? You can't be a berserker and then switch to like the mage, for instance. But I don't know. Like I'm playing the game now, and like if you take it with a grain of salt, it's a fun game. I will say that. Is it worth $60? Hell no. If once again, if this game was $40, I think that the reviews would be a lot better and people would be happier with it. It's just as is. I think I people aren't getting what they wanted out of it. Not
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of the setting and the mood, but in terms of actual content. There's like not as much as what you would want. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Also, like here's the thing. I like the gameplay mechanics, the fighting mechanics. They're good, but they kind of went a little not okay, not kind of. They were very lazy when it came to the enemies, like the actual enemies that you're fighting. They all pretty much had the same generic moveset. And even like the bigger enemies, even though they all look a little bit different, they all had the same patterns. So like they were very easy to avoid, you know? Like I think they spend more time on the main character or like you, the character, they spend more time on your gameplay mechanics that they didn't really work much on the enemy's gameplay mechanics, you know? And that's where it like kind of gets it, but that's where it gets really repetitive. Like if you're gonna be playing this game for like 8 or 10 hours even, and like the boss fights are the same almost every single time, that's where it gets repetitive. Um, but I don't know. I still found the game quite fun regardless. Um, just not for $60. Like no, like definitely not for $60.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's one of those games. Yeah, that like I don't think I'd buy unless it was on sale, or play it unless it was on Game Pass or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. If it ever gets to Game Pass, definitely play it. It's a fun weekend. Other than that, like you're probably never gonna play it again, unless they make like a killer DLC, which I doubt.
All right, let's move on to the next topic, which is kind of we mentioned this last week, so I just want to quickly go over it. Is the Xbox Bethesda Games Showcase? They're going to be streaming on Sunday, June 13th, which is not that far away. It's a little over 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
90-minute show. They're going to pack a ton of stuff. I think this is going to be, I've actually, the last few, before the pandemic, the last few Xbox E3 showcases, I've been there live watching. I went to the Bethesda one too, which was also, and you get some of the stuff that you want to hear, but then you don't get everything and whatnot. I have a feeling this time we're gonna get a lot. I think. Remember last year, I was very disappointed in what Xbox and Microsoft was showing.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, here it is, and like it just never happened until they bought Bethesda. And I feel like this is the time where they're going to be like dropping the bombs now. Like this is the Starfield exclusive to blah, blah, blah. All their, first party exclusive games are going to be on Game Pass day one, which you just can't beat that. So they're going to be Halo Infinite, blah, 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 Starfield. Who knows? Maybe it will come out before the end of the year, and then they'll probably show some Perfect Dark stuff. I don't think that's going to come out this year, but, just showing you, hey, we've got exclusive stuff and,
here's the thing. It's like the past 2 years, they just spent an ass load of money, and now they're about to say, hey, look at the toys we got. You guys are finally about to see, like it's like buying a bunch of sport cars for 2 years, and now you're finally able to show your friends, like, hey, look at my car collection. You know, this is the first showcase I've been excited for. This is the first Microsoft showcase I've ever been excited for. That's not to say that I'm super excited. I'm generally like I have general excitement. But it's the first one I've ever been excited for. I've always been excited for Bethesda showcases because they're always entertaining. Even if like the news is disappointing, at least the show is somewhat entertaining. You know what I mean? Like Todd Howard, he has a bit of showmanship. I'll give it to him. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm genuinely looking forward to this because it's just they're gonna tell us a lot of Game Pass news. I'm excited to see like what they're gonna be talking about Game Pass. What else is gonna be coming? And like you said, man, like also here's the thing. Like I think Microsoft leading this thing off is gonna kind of force Bethesda to talk about things that like we want to know about. You know what I mean? Like I don't think if it wasn't for Microsoft owning Bethesda, I don't think we would have heard a thing about like the next Elder Scrolls game this year. You know what I mean? But now Microsoft's gonna be like, nope, you got to talk. You got to talk. You got to tell everybody. You got to talk about it.
Because remember now they're in the game of getting people on Game Pass. That's their whole game. Yeah. Their whole game is to either sell you a brand new Xbox or on a PC subscribe to Game Pass. Either one. That's the main goal. And so the only way they can do that is to get exclusive games on there. Like I said, many times before, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later as well. That's the only way you're going to get people onto your service. You cannot get your person on the service for just getting, some third-party games that are like 3 years old. That's just not going to do it for people.
Yeah.
They want exclusive, brand new titles. And if you're already going to have Halo Infinite, most likely Starfield, then you're talking about Elder Scrolls 6, which may or may not be exclusive to Game Pass. I said,
they'll definitely talk about it.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be the most exciting thing. They'll mention that.
Yeah,
they're going to talk about Starfield, but yeah.
Or timed exclusive for Elder Scrolls. Indiana Jones, that's a game I forgot about as well.
Oh yeah,
that Bethesda was working on. And then remember from the Microsoft side, not Bethesda, but Fable and Forza. I'm not big.
That's going to be exciting as well. Hopefully, we see some gameplay trailer. Not a gameplay trailer, but like some gameplay footage.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will actually. I think we'll probably see. Most likely, they're going to show us some footage from Fable, and it's going to be open world only. Like I have a feeling, because they were made such a big deal about using the Forza engine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they've mainly just been working on the actual world itself so far. So if anything, they're just going to show off a couple landscapes, which I'm still excited for because I bet it looks freaking great. Yeah, that's gonna be exciting, man.
Yeah. What else is coming out for Xbox? I'm trying to think of what other games.
There's indie games that they're going to talk about. Nobody Saves the World and Astria Ascending.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're going to have to bring it this time. This is kind of like Microsoft/Xbox last chance to like sell people on. They already sell people on Game Pass. Everyone loves Game Pass. It's their time to sell them why someone would pick a Xbox over a PS5. Remember, not everyone can afford both consoles.
It's true. And most likely, like I said, moving forward, ideally, if you're gonna do both, most likely moving forward, you're gonna do PC and PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because with PC, you straight up just get the Microsoft titles anyways.
Yeah, which Microsoft doesn't care because they're making money anyway.
Yeah.
As long as you're on Game Pass, that's the big deal.
That's all they care about. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Bungie's next project is supposedly a character-focused multiplayer game. There was like a new job advertisement saying that they're looking for a multiplayer action game. And
you know what this means, Dennis? They want money. That's all this means. We're gonna make a hero shooter, all right, so that we can make skins.
Yeah,
and then we can sell those skins.
It's basically they're Valorant, Overwatch, Apex Legends.
They were like, look at how much money those games make. What we need to make is relatable. That's all they're gonna do is we're gonna make relatable heroes, super diverse, so that they engage as many different people as possible, so that everybody feels related to these characters, so that they can spend money. That's the goal right there.
Because the thing with Destiny is like the characters are kind of more generic. You know what I mean? They're not quite as character driven because they're more focused on you creating your experience. It just looks like and then. I'm assuming it's going to be a free-to-play game, whether it's Battle Royale or,
Yeah, people are saying because it's character-based, as they're relating it to Devil May Cry, and I was like, well, Devil May Cry is not what. If a game company ever refers to them making a character, Devil May Cry, that's a single player game. That's of course it's character heavy. Any single player game that has a story is going to be character heavy. But no, they're strictly talking about, like you said, like the Overwatch, the Valorant, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Where they can sell skins and they can sell stories as well. Because look, here's the thing. If your game's successful, yes, you're going to make money off the skins because people love that. But then if your game gets even more successful, other people now know, oh, boom, spin-offs. We can make TV shows. Look, Dota has an animated series. Mm-hmm. League of Legends is going to have an animated series coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if Valorant freaking made its own show or something as well. You know what I mean? But because it's Bungie, it's definitely going to be a shooter game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what type? I don't think that they're going to do a tactical shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Like just looking at their like gun mechanics from their previous games, I don't think I feel like it's going to be. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be somewhere between a tactical shooter and like Overwatch,
Mm-hmm.
where like maybe it'll be like maybe it will be a tactical shooter, but the maps will be a bit bigger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the gun mechanics will be less tactical. Like you can be less precise and stuff. I'm not too sure. I'm curious as to where like it's not going to be a MOBA for sure. You know what I mean? They don't do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for gameplay and combat designers. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious as to what they're going to do. I don't think it's going to be a battle royale. They know not to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean
It's like
that market is
market's
very
already
set.
saturated.
Yeah, it's very
It's
saturated.
it's done. You can't break into it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one's very interesting. Valve could be working on a handheld Steam console. And remember we had talked about Gabe Newell and his kind of reference to Steam games possibly being on consoles in the future, but we didn't know what that meant. We didn't know if that meant, they're just going to have the Steam store on consoles, which we thought would be weird because I don't see Sony or Microsoft letting that happen. But then we thought, okay, maybe they're talking about their Steam games, Valve/games. But now it seems like this is more likely what he's talking about or referencing to, because it's a handheld console. They're saying codename Neptune, possibly called Steam Pal.
Yeah, that's definitely not what it's going to be called. The Steam.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just playing my Steam Pal.
Yeah, it sounds very
I don't think
weird.
they'll go with that.
It's probably also another code name.
It's a work in progress, most likely. The name itself, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It looks like they're going for something Nintendo Switch styled.
Yeah,
My
but more hot, more adult, I
yeah.
guess, more.
Because the thing is, there is already a lot of, and this is actually like a hot market at the moment. There's a lot of people trying to break into this market at the moment. There are actually so many um, handheld gaming devices, like portable computers, if you will.
Mhm.
Like I'm not just talking about like there's a lot of like brands you've never heard of before. You do, I think, at the moment, most people are using the NVIDIA Shield. Um, the NVIDIA Shield setup, which is like kind of using your laptop with the game controller, and
Mhm.
then there's also obviously like straight up you can just like I don't know how to explain it. There was one I saw recently that's like about the size of an iPad Pro, but a bit thicker and clunkier, obviously, and
Mhm.
it's straight up just a Windows like tablet that you can play all your Windows games on. It functions really well, except that the cursor is really
Mhm.
slow, and there's no touchscreen support. So I think that they could do great here because the market's still fresh. No one's dominated the PC handheld market yet. There's a few people who are doing it, but they're doing it at like price points that are just not so like they're doing it at like price points that are too expensive or brands you don't trust, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
if you like it's like like I know Linus did a video on them on a couple recently
Mhm.
when it's like if you're able to like test it yourself, you'll be like, oh, this is worth the money. But just from looking at it online, you're not going to spend that kind of money
That's how I
unless
feel about
like,
VR.
yeah,
VR, people
unless
don't
you have
want to
the
spend the
backing.
money until you actually play it. Until you
True.
play VR, then you're like, oh, okay, that's what it is. That's totally worth it. Obviously, Quest 2 is changing that, but it's like, And speaking of VR, Valve, has delved into the whole hardware aspect with the Valve Index, and perhaps they were like, okay, we kind of got that working. Let's try some hardware on a portable device, because there's no
Yeah.
point in all their games run on PCs. They're not going to make a PC. First of all, the margins are very small on those, very
Mm.
thin. So no use in making their own PC. But portable, I mean, they could go the console route as well, but you're trying to sell PC gamers on trying to go on consoles. Why not just buy a regular console? So I think the handheld thing is kind of the only market they would be able to kind of get into, because right now the Switch only plays Switch games, where
Exactly. Yeah.
so this is something where you possibly could get some market share into.
Yeah, it's so apparently like there's really like not much information in terms of the product itself out there, but so far they're saying the prototype itself it's wider than a Switch, obviously because there's going to be a lot more controls. I think they've opted for an actual like little mini QWERTY keyboard, which
Hmm.
is good because all the portable PCs I've seen usually opt for using an on-screen keyboard or
Hmm.
touch keyboard, and they're just like painful to use at the best of times. You know what I mean? The real trick here is going to be actually, you know what? If they incorporate their Valve controller, which didn't sell well and it was like not used very well, if they incorporate those touch controls, I think it could work really well to use as a mouse instead because every handheld PC that I've seen has an issue of controlling the mouse correctly. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Without using some kind of like touch input like a cursor or a stylus or something, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, because the old Valve controller was like just circles. Your D-pad, like both sides of the controller were just circles. You could click up, down, left, right for directions, or obviously triangle, X, square, circle, or whatever. But they were like circular touch pads, so you could also use them as like a mouse almost.
Hmm.
And I think that could work very like really well with this. They have the what's the word I'm looking for? They have the technology. Yeah, they have the technology, so I think that they could do a really good job here. I think it's gonna just make them even bigger, like conglomerate giants. You know what I mean? Like I think that if this does well, the money from this handheld device will most likely be put all straight towards their VR department. That's what I think. I think that
We'll
they'll
see.
use it as funding for their VR department because I think that's still their end goal is to like do their own version of the Oasis and have the mind tracking thing that they're working on or whatever. Um, but yeah,
We'll see, because they're definitely going for the high end market, and I believe this handheld console will be the same, right? This is not going to be a cheap product.
yeah,
Valve with the Valve Index, and most likely with this, they're not looking to get mass market adoption. They're looking to get, if you are a hardcore gamer, if you have the money to spend, much like for the Valve Index, right? It's triple the price of a Quest 2. That's the market they're going for, and I believe this is not going to be a cheap thing. How much is a Switch? Like $300, I think.
yeah, roughly give or take.
So I think this thing is minimum $600. This is not going to be a cheap product. So
Yeah, and I'm trying to damn it, I have regional pricing up here. I just found the one that I was looking at the other day. I want to see if I can uh look up the thing that the Neo, the Aya Neo. Hold on, let me try this. Aya Neo handheld. What's the price in dollars? Because this is like most likely it's oh man, I'm just getting the price in rand. If I had to speculate though, it's like it is more expensive than a PS5, for instance. So like
yeah.
most likely like their handheld system will be at a similar price. Like this one right now, the one that I'm looking at
Hmm.
in dollars is probably about $700 to $800.
Yeah. I mean,
But it's
this sounds about
yeah,
right.
it sounds about right. But that's also like we have really high import tax. I think in America it might be as cheap as like $600 to $700, but because of the import tax,
Hmm.
it's like 20,000 rand here, which means it's like I don't know how to explain it. That's like roughly like $200 to $300 more than a PS5. So yeah, I'm gonna say about 800, which makes sense to me. If you're gonna be doing like, look, high-end gaming laptops are gonna go for like a grand. Like you're not gonna spend anything less than a grand on like a decent gaming laptop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you can get like, so you have people that are willing to pay that price point. Most likely, Steam will realize that that is like the benchmark of like a grand. You know what I mean? People are willing to spend a grand on something. I guess it's also the question of like, do you think that they'll release something that's what's the word I'm looking for? Not compartmental, but like upgradable, you know? Like, do you think that they'll release
Like
something that you can like
modular, something modular.
modular? That's
I
yeah,
don't
modular.
know.
That's
It's
the
it's
term.
it's tough in a handheld console because
It wouldn't
the
be
whole.
profitable,
Also,
you
like
know?
if you do make it modular, the problem is then the physical form factor ends up being much bigger and clunkier. It's harder to
Mm.
streamline. stuff like that. I
True,
mean,
true.
ideally, yes, you'd want to be like, I'm going to swap out the graphics card and whatever, swap out the
Well, then
RAM and
again,
the processor, but it's just like, yeah, at that point, you're going to have this very clunky device.
a gaming laptop's life expectancy is roughly 2 years. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can have laptops that stretch out for longer, but like a high-end gaming laptop has a life expectancy of about 2, maybe 3 years, and then you start having problems. You know what I mean?
Thank God.
So I guess
That's a lot of money
people,
to drop for 2-3
I
years.
know, I know. Yeah.
I've been using my
Surface.
I've been using my Surface Book for like 6 years now. I mean, it's not a gaming laptop, but I mean, it's my main laptop workhorse that I use.
Normal laptops they last, but it's like the gaming laptops, they tend to have difficulties because they're always cramming so much in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like as much as they can, which makes sense. At least that's from my own experience. Like using Alienware laptops and stuff like that, they've never lasted longer than 3 years tops.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, let's move on to the next thing. This one's real quick. Now the Sony Days of Play sale is live. They have some deals. I did find it funny though in the comment sections. So like, you have Spider-Man Miles Morales Ultimate Edition for PS5 is on sale for $60. Well, it actually is on sale for $60 because the original price is $70. Same with Demon Souls. It's $60, not $70. So that's like their sale, right? And people were commenting. People were joking like, "Oh, great! Now we can buy these games for the regular price."
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, you get you can buy the PS4 Last of Us Part 2 for $30, Ghost of Tsushima for $40. Sackboy for PS5 for $50 because the original price on that it wasn't a quote unquote full price game for PS5. It was $60. But yeah, that is PS4 God of War $10. I had bought mine for $10. We talked about this earlier. Horizon Zero Dawn you can get for $10 on PS4, which I still need to play.
It was free on PS4 for a brief period.
Yeah, I didn't get it because I already had bought it, so it's like
yeah.
Death Stranding $20. Just some sales. I mean, nothing crazy like where you're like, man, you got to rush out and get it. But if you haven't played God of War or Horizon Zero Dawn for PS4, $10 is a pretty good price for them.
Speaking of this is not really that much related, but I've really been disappointed in Epic's free games lately.
They don't have the money to spend. We talked about it before. They spent so much money.
Here's the thing: they always do the free games. Like each week, there's a free game, but they don't really like advertise it usually. But lately, they did this thing that they did a year ago, which was like the mystery game. Like they don't tell you what the free game is going to be next week, and that usually means that it's going to be a big game, because why else would they like make a whole mystery thing out of it? Usually, they're just like, hey, this is the game that's going to be free next week. They usually just show you in like a little preview screen. Whereas this time, it's like, ooh, mystery game. Yesterday's mystery game dropped, and it was Among Us. It was a freaking look. I love Among Us, but it's like a $5 game or something. And that was they were like, "Hey guys, you're welcome. We gave you Among Us for free. You're welcome." It's literally free on mobile. Oh my god. Anyways,
I think it's on Game Pass as well.
Yes, on Game Pass. Yeah, that's my rant of the day.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next one. This one I just thought interesting because this is a game that I kind of like didn't really hear about, and then when I started watching some of the gameplay, I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. Anyways, this game, Green Hell, they're making a Xbox version, digital only, for $25. It's a game that came out in end of 2019, so about 2 years ago on the PC. I think it's on sale right now for $17.99. Anyways, it's like a survival game where you're like on this island and there's kind of a Lost slash Lara Croft Tomb Raider feel to it. It's like you can play up to 4 players of co-op, and you're like on this island and you're trying to survive, but then there's like this Amazonian tribe on this island that you have to deal with some sort of crazy supernatural stuff too. So
you got gators and snakes.
Yeah, it's from a
diseases and leeches. Ew! Sorry, I'm like watching the trailer.
It's from the first person perspective. There's like a story.
Yeah.
Anyways, it has it's overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. So I think I'm gonna get this. The price is right. The only thing I need to decide is whether I want to get it on Xbox or get the PC version. So check that out.
Looks like it'll run smooth on either.
Yeah.
I mean, survival games, in my opinion, are usually played better with the mouse and keyboard, just because you've got that like big inventory like space as well.
Yeah.
It looks interesting. I can't believe I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it either. And then they're kind of touting this port to Xbox, and all right. Moving on. This is Unreal Engine 5 is now available in early access. There's some tech stuff, some geek stuff.
Guess how big it is.
I mean, I'm sure it's huge. I'm sure it's huge.
It's 100 gigs minimum, I think.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Makes sense.
I mean, if you see what it can do, I mean, what's very interesting about it, at least for myself, it's like, one, we've been using Unreal 4 for developing our VR games like Twin Peaks VR and our pickup basketball game. Unreal 5, the engine looks like amazing in terms of the graphics and whatnot, but also from movie TV industry side, they're starting to incorporate, I don't know if you know, they're starting to incorporate the Unreal Engine into actual virtual productions for movies and television. And they're using because the graphics are now good enough where they can build environments and then display them either in post and green screen or during production on virtual screens.
I would imagine it's also really good for crowds.
Yeah.
Like digitally creating crowds and stuff. I would imagine the new engine must be really good for like large amounts of CGI people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, this is like movie quality stuff. And so, yeah, just, a little bit of geek stuff if you're into any of that stuff. Unreal Engine 5, early access.
There was other news related to that. I don't know if you saw, but some guy made like a 10 billion polygon photo of his dog sleeping using the Unreal Engine 5. But it's like I think it was just a photo of his dog, but he was able to make it like I don't know how he did it. I don't know. I just know it's impressive. I looked at like the Instagram clip and I was like, it just looks like a video, but apparently it wasn't a video. It was a photo that he turned into a video, I guess, using 10 billion polygons. It was just crazy. Like, I wonder if he used AI for it either. But yeah, so that looked quite cool. That's always exciting stuff. So I don't get the nitty gritty parts of this, but supposedly one of the most important things about this is that you're getting 4K resolution at the cost of 1080p. Like, which I'm at least that's the sentence they use to try to make it understandable for my tiny brain. Which I'm guessing they're basically saying, hey, look, the new engine just makes 4K less resource heavy. I guess that's all they're saying. Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah. All right, this is my last thing, and then we'll get into some of the news that you found. Is the actress Merle Dandridge, who voiced Marlene in The Last of Us, the first Last of Us game. Did she appear? What it said she appeared in Last of Us Part 2. I don't remember that part. Was there a flashback with her or something?
Possible.
I'm totally blanking. Or did she come back? I can't remember. But anyways, she's actually gonna play that same character in the TV series, which hardly ever happens. Which hardly ever happens, right? Like usually when you voice a character in a game or let's say an animated movie, you are not the person that's hired to actually play that character in live action. But she is going to do that for the HBO series, so that was a kind of cool thing. All right, that's it for me. What do you got going on?
Boom. Switch Pro coming out. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's the Switch Pro, but we're assuming it's the Switch Pro. The Switch Pro is coming out in September, as soon as September. We're assuming it's the Switch Pro because it's literally it's going to be more expensive than the Switch, first of all. So it's going to cost you more than the Switch cost you, but you're going to be able to. It's going to handle 4K, in docked mode, not in handheld mode.
I was gonna say 4K on a tiny little screen doesn't doesn't do anything for you. It's
The
only
screen is going to be a 7-inch Samsung display, OLED display. So the screen is going to be 7-inch OLED. So the screen is getting a massive improvement, but it's not going to be 4K. Yeah.
there's no point
Um,
at that size.
there's no point in that size. Yeah. But yeah, so docked, it'll be able to do 4K. It's getting improvements to the screen. Um, and yeah, it's going to be more expensive. It's coming out this September. I guess there is a need for 4K resolution in docked mode, but in terms of the better like processing and performance, I don't. Well, I guess they'll be able to like a lot of games were downgraded in order for them to be able to put it on the Switch. Like
Hmm.
Doom, for instance. You're
Yeah.
not playing Doom at its like most beautiful
No.
like gory elements if you're playing it on the Switch, you know what I mean? You're playing a watered down version. So hopefully that means that like they'll be getting like some upgrade. Some people will be getting some upgrades or something. I guess if they get the new console, the new Switch. It's also exciting because I suppose if thing is I don't have a Switch yet, if this does well, then instead of me getting myself a Switch, I may as well get the Switch Pro, which
Hmm.
like I said, that's what we're calling it. They haven't said the name yet, but we're just assuming it's the Switch Pro. Um, yeah, and then we spoke about this briefly, but most likely Uncharted 4 is going to be coming to PC,
Hmm.
um, because of the like Days Gone had a great like reception on Steam. Like Days Gone has got great reviews on Steam. It was like highly played on Steam. It's still not my kind of game. Not the kind of game I would enjoy. Well, actually, I would enjoy the kind of game, but it's like it's a big game. You know, I need like to dedicate time to playing it. It's like Red Dead Redemption. You can't just pick it up out of nowhere. You know.
Hmm.
Um, so I think they know that like they can see that there's a lot of success in them in they're bringing their IP to PC. So yeah, most likely we're getting Uncharted 4. PS Plus games for June 2021 has been announced. I haven't read this yet, but it's always worth mentioning, I suppose. Let's see for PS5, it's going to be Operation Tango. That's a co-op spy adventure game. Um, yeah, apparently there's a PS4 version as well, but this is the PS5. The PS5 version is the one that's free on PS5. On PS4, you're going to get Virtua Fighter 5. Um, and then what else? I think you're getting Star Wars Squadrons as well. So Squadrons is going to be that's quite soon for it to be going free, but yeah. This is really exciting news for me, which I don't know why I thought we may have covered this last week, but me and my friends have been talking about this, which is about the fact that there are rumors. Well, not rumors, I suppose. Well, like they are rumors, but like we know that they're happening. It's just we don't know how these rumors are lined up specifically. But most likely they are working on an action RPG spin-off for Final Fantasy, and
Hmm.
they're like with a very like heavy Souls approach. So very different from like Final Fantasy games. I think that there's a possibility that this might not be a spin-off. I think that this might actually just straight up be Final Fantasy 16.
Hmm.
I think they're just adding Souls-like elements into the game, which will be good because they've started going like especially with Final Fantasy 15, they've gone the more hack and slash route.
Hmm.
So I think and I liked Final Fantasy 15, but the game at a certain point the game gets like very button mashy, and I think if they added like a parry or a dodge roll. Well, they also the game had a parry too, but it wasn't like a proper parry. You know what I mean? If they add those elements, it makes the game a bit more difficult, gives it a bit more like edge to the game, and it will suit the era because it looks like Final Fantasy 16 is going to be in that whole medieval era. It looks very dark, very mature. Um, I don't know. It also could just be a whole new game. Most likely, people are saying a spin-off, so it could be a Final Fantasy 7 spin-off because we've seen the success of Final Fantasy 7, and there were a lot of Final Fantasy 7 spin-offs in the past, like Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus. So maybe it's a remake of one of those games. People are saying as well that it could be like an origin story or like a precursor to Final Fantasy, or I don't know. They're calling it the Final Fantasy Origin. Um, but yeah, the game's going to be either set in the Final Fantasy world or it's going to be set adjacent to that. Um, Oh, hold on. Yeah, no, this is going to be called Final Fantasy Origin,
Okay.
and it's based off of like the I guess it's going to be it's going to be either adjacent or it's going to be based off of the original Final Fantasy game from 1987. but with a Souls-like influence, more action RPG, which I think it's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. I kind of speculated that Square Enix was going to go that route with their games, especially with the past couple Final Fantasy games. I don't think we're going to get a turn-based game anytime soon unless it's a remake of an old game.
Yeah, and even then they've been updating those.
Exactly, yeah. But I'm excited for that. That's exciting news. And then this we spoke about before the podcast, worth mentioning, which is that Netflix is trying to get into the video game space. They're busy hiring. Let me make sure I read this correctly. They're hiring people. Man, I forgot the actual term of people that they're looking for here. But the point is that Netflix is hiring people. They're not too sure. We're not too sure if they're going to be developing games or if they're trying to make their own gaming streaming service. I think it's too late for them to try to get into that, but yeah.
I think they're going to try their own streaming service because what's the point for them making games and putting them on different services? I mean, the whole thing about Netflix is that subscription model, and so it is very late in the game. And like I mentioned many times with Google Stadia and Amazon Luna and whatnot, like you need those exclusive first party games, otherwise people, plus you need the library too. You can't just have one or the other, because if you just have the AAA 1A exclusive titles, that's great. The only problem is people will subscribe and then unsubscribe after they're done with it and then wait till the next game comes out, because at that rate you're only gonna, even at as much money as Netflix has, they're only gonna be making maybe 2 to 3, let's say, AAA titles per game. That's best case scenario. And then people are just going to unsubscribe until the next one drops, play that and whatever. The reason why people keep Game Pass is, yes, they have the day one exclusives. You'll play Halo, right? And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, you get tired of it. Well, guess what? They have a library of content that you haven't played yet that you can play in the meantime until the next thing drops, Starfield or whatever it is. So if you're at least getting, let's say, those AAA titles, brand new releases once every few months, then you're good. Every 3 months a AAA title drops, you're fine. You're willing to pay the money in between to play that library of content.
Yeah, I think they're going to get into developing purely based off of the fact that
based on their IPs? Based on their IPs?
Like they're gonna make a Stranger Things game. Okay. Like the Stranger Things games, like they made the arcadey ones because obviously it's a show based in the 80s, therefore they made an 80s type game. But I think that they would do well because they've seen look, Stranger Things has affected the gaming world itself. Like we've seen tie-ins with Dead by Daylight, I believe, or it was one of those games. So they know that there's they know there's blah blah. They know that there's a market there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most like especially with things like the Bandersnatch. You know what I mean? Maybe we'll see them doing their own Telltale kind of games thing. I don't think that they're going to be doing a service. Maybe that is their goal, is to make their own video game streaming service. But I think that they're going to realize as soon as they have one board meeting, they're probably going to realize, oh, this is a freaking horrible idea. Let's just develop games instead. Because I think people would like a Stranger Things game. I would like a Stranger Things game. It doesn't have to be based on the characters we know, even. You know what I mean? It can just be based on the Upside Down or in that whole world. They do have a lot of interesting IP from themselves that I think that they could do some interesting games. But it's also one of those things, because Netflix is so big, they could end up putting a lot of time and effort into this and then just and then wiping it under the rug, pretending it never happened if it never gets anywhere. Yeah. But they make enough money where they can, and it won't hurt anybody. People are still gonna get paid their time. You know.
I mean, if they do end up doing let's say a streaming service or whatever for games, much like Game Pass or whatever. The thing is, think about this: Google is one of the biggest companies in the world, and they are having a hard time investing enough resources and money into this endeavor. You know what I mean? If you want to do it, the reason why Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo have a leg up is because they already are in that world. They're known names. They're making exclusive titles that people are familiar with and want to play. The other people are starting at scratch, unless one of these Google or Amazon, or let's say Netflix, pulls a Microsoft and buys like a huge studio, like someone, let's say hypothetically, Google decides to buy Rockstar, and then imagine Rockstar games were exclusively only on Google Stadia. People would.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it won't happen because first of all, Rockstar they make games once every how many years? They make a ton of money, but their model is not, to make as many games as possible and as much frequent as possible. Ubisoft is probably more along the lines of what someone would want to buy because they have several different IP franchises that they own exclusively, and they do make games quite frequently in that model.
Also, their subscription service is trash. Absolute trash. So they could stand to do with a bit of help from somebody.
Yeah, so something like that is more likely. But anyways, that's something that a new streaming gaming service would have to do. I think it's too late to build their own. Bless you. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Bless you.
Came out of nowhere. And then the last bit of news I have, and it's not really worth talking about. It's just that they announced Dragon Quest 12.
Okay.
Not really worth. Nothing to say there. Just
Dragon Quest used to be like on par with Final Fantasy back in the day. Like remember, like in terms of like Japanese RPGs, it was like Final Fantasy,
in the 80s and 90s for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously Dragon Quest kind of wasn't as well known, and Final Fantasy just kept going on and on.
Dragon Quest was still well received in Japan for a while, but in the 2000s, it just didn't come over to the Western world. Not until like the past 2 or 3, those were like well received.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Looks good. But that's all I got. Well, that's all the news I got for the week at least.
Cool. All right. I guess that's it for this episode. Thanks for everyone who's been watching or listening to us. Checking us out. We have a podcast feed. I have it in the description below, or if you're listening to the podcast feed, we have a YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Revog, where we have this podcast every single week. You can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, Instagram Dennis.tzng. Josh, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at josh.toki. You guys can find me on TikTok at josh.toki. And you guys can find me on Twitch at josh_toki.
Cool. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Later.